The morning sun cast long shadows across the peaceful gardens of New Haven Orphanage on Kepler 442b. Children's laughter echoed through the corridors as Sister Maria led the morning assembly. 53 children, ranging from toddlers to teenagers, had found sanctuary here among the rolling hills of humanity's newest colony world. Marcus Chun finished his daily perimeter check, adjusting his worn security uniform. At 62, he was technically past retirement age, but the children needed protection, and old habits died hard. His weathered hands still moved with the precision of a former colonial marine as he checked the facility's modest defensive systems. Mostly early warning sensors designed to detect wildlife, not military threats. Uncle Marcus, 8-year-old Sarah bounded up to him, her auburn hair catching the morning light. She clutched a small wooden toy spaceship he'd carved for her last Christmas. "Look what I made the ship do." She demonstrated a complex aerial maneuver that would have impressed any pilot. Marcus smiled, remembering teaching her about flight dynamics during their evening story sessions. Sarah had lost her parents in a mining accident 2 years ago, but her spirit remained unbroken. "That's excellent piloting, Captain Sarah," Marcus said, using her favorite nickname. "Maybe one day you'll fly a real ship." "I want to fly the big ships that protect people," she declared with the absolute certainty only children possessed. The orphanage housed children from across human space. Some were war orphans from the frontier conflicts. Others had lost families to accidents or disease. Sister Maria, a former combat medic turned nun, had established New Haven as a place of healing. The facility operated on donations and volunteer work, teaching children practical skills alongside traditional education. Marcus continued his rounds, noting the normal activity patterns. In the workshop, 14-year-old James taught younger children basic engineering. The boy had arrived 3 months ago after his entire family died in a Vorthan raid on the Outer Rim. He rarely spoke about it, but his hands never stopped working, building small devices and teaching others. The communication array crackled to life in Marcus's earpiece. "New Haven, this is Colonial Defense Force Monitoring Station Delta 7. Please respond." Marcus keyed his comm unit. "Delta 7, this is New Haven Security." Marcus Chin responding. "Chin, we're tracking unusual ship signatures in your sector. Multiple contacts, non-human configuration. Recommend immediate evacuation protocols." Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. "How many contacts?" "Initial count shows 12 vessels, destroyer class or larger. They're not responding to communications, and their approach vector indicates hostile intent." Through the workshop windows, Marcus watched James help a 6-year-old named Tommy wire a simple circuit. The boy's face showed the same concentration Marcus had seen in veteran engineers under fire. These children had already lost so much. "Delta 7, what's our timeline?" 40 minutes, maybe less if they increase speed." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. 40 minutes to evacuate 53 children from the only home most of them had ever known. The nearest settlement was 6 hours away by transport, and they only had 2 vehicles capable of carrying everyone. He switched to the facility's internal comm system. "Sister Maria, please report to the security office immediately. Code yellow." Code yellow meant potential evacuation. They drilled for this scenario, but Marcus had always hoped they'd never need it. The children knew the protocols: gather essential items, report to designated assembly points, maintain comm. Sister Maria had insisted on the training after the last Vorthan attack on human settlements. Sister Maria arrived within minutes, her weathered face creasing with concern. At 55, she moved with the efficient grace of someone accustomed to crisis. Her hands, scarred from years of battlefield medicine, remained steady as she listened to Marcus's briefing. 40 minutes, she repeated. "The children in the East Wing are still in morning lessons. Physical education is scheduled for the outdoor complex. I'll handle evacuation coordination," Marcus said. "You focus on the children who need medical attention during transport." 3 children required daily medication, and 2 used mobility assistance. Little Emma, barely 4 years old, had been born with a genetic condition affecting her lungs. She needed a specialized breathing apparatus during stress. The comm system crackled again. New Haven, Delta 7. Contact speed has increased. Revised timeline 32 minutes. Marcus felt the familiar calm of combat preparation settle over him. Years of training and experience kicked in, pushing aside fear and uncertainty. He activated the facility-wide alert system. Attention New Haven residents. This is Marcus. We're implementing evacuation protocol Amber. All children please proceed to your designated assembly areas. This is not a drill. Remain calm and help your younger friends. Throughout the facility, children began moving with practiced efficiency. The older ones helped the younger ones, just as they'd been taught. Sarah appeared at Marcus's side, her toy spaceship tucked safely in her pocket. Are the bad people coming again? She asked with a maturity that broke Marcus's heart. Maybe, Captain, he said gently. But we're going to make sure everyone gets to safety. Sister Maria organized the medical supplies while Marcus coordinated transport loading. The first vehicle, a converted cargo hauler, could carry 30 people. The second, a passenger transport, took the remaining 23 plus essential supplies. James approached Marcus carrying a small device. I modified the emergency beacon, the teenager said quietly. It'll broadcast our evacuation route to any rescue ships. Thought might help. Marcus examined the device. The modifications were sophisticated, showing engineering knowledge beyond the boy's supposed education level. Good thinking, James. You'll make a fine engineer. The boy's expression darkened momentarily. My father was an engineer. On the mining platform when the Vorthons hit. 24 minutes remaining. The children loaded efficiently into the vehicles. Marcus made final checks of the facility's systems, setting automated distress beacons and locking down sensitive equipment. New Haven represented years of careful construction and community building. Losing it would devastate the colonial administration's orphan care programs. Sister Maria secured Emma's breathing apparatus while the little girl clutched a stuffed animal. Will we come back home soon? Emma asked, her voice muffled by the medical device. I hope so, sweetheart, Sister Maria replied, though her eyes met Marcus's with shared uncertainty. 18 minutes remaining. Marcus climbed into the lead transport, conducting final head counts. 53 children, Sister Maria, 2 volunteer teachers, and himself. Everyone accounted for. He keyed the comm system. Delta 7, New Haven convoy is departing. 2 vehicles, 57 souls total, heading for Millfield Settlement via Route 7. Copy, New Haven. Be advised, unknown contacts are now 15 minutes from your location. Recommend maximum speed. The transports rumbled to life, their engines struggling with the full passenger loads. Marcus pushed the accelerator, feeling the vehicle strain as they climbed the first hill away from the facility. In the rearview mirror, New Haven grew smaller, its white buildings gleaming in the morning sun. 12 minutes later, the horizon behind them erupted in orange flame. The shockwave reached them 30 seconds after the flash, rattling the transport and causing several children to cry out in fear. Marcus fought to keep the vehicle steady as the ground trembled beneath them. Sarah pressed her face to the window, watching the black smoke rise where their home had been. Uncle Marcus, she whispered, why do they hurt children? Marcus had no answer. He'd spent 30 years in the colonial marines, fighting to protect human settlements from various alien threats. He'd seen warfare's brutality, but attacking an orphanage represented a level of cruelty that challenged his understanding of strategic thinking. Behind them, secondary explosions lit the sky as New Haven's infrastructure collapsed. The workshop where James had taught engineering. The garden where children learned to grow food. The library where Marcus read bedtime stories. All of it reduced to smoking rubble. The comm system activated with a new voice, harsh, mechanical, clearly non-human. The translation software struggled with the alien language before producing words in standard English. Human settlement designated New Haven has been cleansed. Children of the weak species will not grow to threaten Vorthan expansion. This world belongs to the strong. Marcus felt something cold and terrible settle in his chest. The Vorthans had specifically targeted an orphanage, not a military installation, not a strategic resource, but children who posed no possible threat to anyone. In the passenger compartment, Sister Maria held Emma while the little girl struggled with her breathing. The stress of evacuation had triggered a respiratory episode, despite the medical apparatus. Other children huddled together, processing the destruction of their home. James sat alone, staring at his hands. The device he'd modified to help rescue ships find them now seemed pathetically inadequate against the force that had just destroyed everything they'd built. Marcus keyed his personal comm unit, bypassing official colonial defense channels. The frequency connected him directly to an old friend, Admiral Catherine Ross of the Terran Republic Navy. They'd served together during the Centauri campaign 20 years ago. "Kate, it's Marcus, Chun." "Marcus? What are you doing on an unsecured channel?" "The Vorthans just bombed New Haven Orphanage. 53 children, Kate. They specifically targeted children." The silence stretched long enough that Marcus wondered if the connection had failed. When Admiral Ross spoke again, her voice carried a quality he remembered from the worst days of their military service. "Say that again, Marcus." "Vorthans. They bombed an orphanage." The transmission was clear. They targeted children specifically to prevent them from growing up to oppose Vorthan expansion. Another long pause. In the background, Marcus could hear the sounds of a military command center, voices calling out status reports, the hum of sophisticated electronics, the controlled urgency of people managing complex operations. "Marcus, I need you to send me everything. Sensor readings, communications intercepts, witness statements. Everything." "Kate, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking someone just made the biggest mistake in human history." The transport crested another hill, bringing Millfield Settlement into view. The small community of prefabricated buildings looked peaceful in the afternoon sun, unaware that the nature of humanity's relationship with the galaxy had just fundamentally changed. Marcus helped the children disembark, watching their faces as they processed their new reality. They'd lost their home, their sense of security, their belief that someone would protect them from the darkness between stars. But in their eyes, he saw something else emerging. Not just grief and fear, but a growing understanding that the universe contained threats that could only be answered with strength. Sarah approached him, still clutching her wooden spaceship. "Uncle Marcus, will you teach me to fight the bad people?" "Sarah, you're too young to think about fighting." "I'm not too young to remember," she said with devastating clarity. "And when I grow up, I'm going to make sure no one ever hurts children again." Marcus knelt beside her, seeing his own determination reflected in her young face. Around them, the other children listened intently. James nodded slowly, his engineering mind already calculating possibilities. "Maybe I will teach you," Marcus said quietly. "Maybe I'll teach all of you." Above them, the evening sky showed the first stars. Somewhere among those distant points of light, ships were already beginning to move. Orders were being issued. Weapons were being prepared. The Vorthans had just discovered that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their absolute unwillingness to forgive certain kinds of cruelty. The war that would reshape the galaxy had begun with the destruction of a single building. But it would be won by the children who survived that destruction and the adults who refused to let their sacrifice be forgotten. Marcus looked up at the stars and smiled grimly. The Vorthans wanted to see humanity's true nature. They were about to get their wish. Admiral Catherine Ross stood before the emergency session of the Terran Republic Council, her dress uniform crisp despite having been awakened at 0300 hours. The holographic display behind her showed the smoking crater that had once been New Haven Orphanage. 57 council members from across human space watched in stunned silence. The attack occurred at 10:47 local time on Kepler 442b, Admiral Ross reported, her voice carrying the controlled fury of a career military officer. Initial Vorthan transmission claimed responsibility and specifically stated their intent to eliminate human children before they could mature into threats. Counselor Harrison of the Core Worlds leaned forward. Admiral, while this attack is certainly tragic, we must consider the broader implications of military escalation. Perhaps diplomatic. Counselor, Admiral Ross interrupted, her tone arctic. They bombed an orphanage. Children who were learning to read and write. Children who were playing with wooden toys. The Vorthans didn't attack a military target or strategic resource. They murdered children because those children were human. She activated another hologram showing the evacuation footage Marcus had transmitted. Sarah's small face appeared on screen, asking why bad people hurt children. Emma, struggling to breathe in her medical apparatus. James, barely 14, trying to help others while processing the destruction of his second home. These are the survivors, Admiral Ross continued. 53 children who now understand that the galaxy contains beings willing to murder them simply for existing. The council chamber erupted in heated discussion. Representatives from the Outer Rim colonies demanded immediate military action. Core World diplomats urged caution and measured response. The debate had continued for 6 hours without resolution. Admiral Ross had heard enough. She keyed her personal communicator, sending a coded message to fleet commanders across human space. The message was simple. Project Baba Yaga was now active. 3 days later, the first Vorthan patrol encountered something unprecedented in their military experience. Commander Thekvar of the Vorthan destroyer-crushing Talon studied the sensor readings with growing confusion. His ship had been investigating reports of unusual energy signatures near the Rigel system when they detected what appeared to be a single human vessel. Analysis of the contact, Sensor Operator Vashki, Thekvar commanded. The vessel appears to be a modified human freighter, Commander. However, the energy readings suggest significant internal modifications. Thekvar's mandibles clicked in amusement. Since beginning their expansion into human space, Vorthan forces had found human vessels laughably primitive. Their weapons were crude, their armor ineffective, their tactics predictable. The destruction of the orphanage had been intended as a demonstration of Vorthan's superiority. Open communications, Thekvar ordered. We will offer these humans the opportunity to surrender before we destroy them. The communication array activated, transmitting standard surrender demands in translated human language. The response came back immediately, but instead of words, the Vorthan crew heard something that chilled them to their core. Laughter. Not the nervous laughter of fear or desperation, but something cold and purposeful. The kind of sound predators make when they finally corner their prey. Human vessel, Thekvar transmitted again. You will surrender immediately or face destruction. The response came in perfect Vorthan, spoken with an accent that suggested the human speaker had studied their language extensively. Vorthan vessel. This is Captain Sarachun of the Terran Republic ship Little Wooden Spaceship. You are guilty of crimes against humanity, specifically the murder of children. Prepare to face judgment. Thekvar's translator struggled with the human concept of judgment in this context, but the threat was clear. He activated his vessel's weapons systems, targeting the human freighter with enough firepower to vaporize a city block. Fire all weapons, he commanded. The crushing Talon's particle beams and plasma torpedoes struck the human vessel directly. Thekvar expected to see wreckage, but instead, the enemy ship emerged from the weapon's discharge completely unharmed. Impossible, whispered Sensor Operator Vashki. Our weapons had no effect whatsoever. The human vessel began to change. What had appeared to be a simple freighter unfolded like a mechanical flower, revealing concealed weapon systems and armor plating that defied Vorthan understanding. The ship's hull seemed to shift and flow, adapting its configuration for maximum combat effectiveness. Human technology cannot achieve this level of defensive capability, Thekvar stated, though his voice carried uncertainty. Captain Sarachun's voice echoed through the Vorthan bridge again. You're right. This isn't just human technology. This is what happens when humans get angry enough to break every rule of science they thought they understood. The human vessel fired a single beam of energy that passed harmlessly through the crushing Talon's shields and armor. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, every electronic system on the Vorthan ship began to malfunction simultaneously. What did they do to us? Thekvar demanded, his engineering officer corps that checked his instruments with trembling claws. Commander, the human weapon has somehow infected our computer systems with an adaptive virus. It's learning our technology as it spreads, turning our own systems against us. The main display showed the virus's progression through their ship's networks. It moved with impossible speed and intelligence, as if it understood Vorthan technology better than the Vorthans themselves. More impossible technology, Thekvar growled. Humans lack the computational sophistication for such warfare. Captain Chin's laughter echoed through their speakers again. You're still thinking like this is the humanity you met before. The humanity that built peaceful orphanages and taught children to share toys. That humanity died when you decided to murder children. The Vorthan ship shuddered as its own weapons systems turned inward, beginning to systematically destroy non-essential components. The virus was dismantling their vessel piece by piece, learning from each system it compromised. Emergency transmission, Thekvar ordered. All Vorthan forces, unknown human vessel has deployed impossible technology. Request immediate reinforcement. The transmission never reached its destination. The adaptive virus had taken control of their communications array, replacing their distress call with something else entirely. Captain Chin's voice came through their speakers one final time. This message will reach every Vorthan fleet in human space. You wanted to see what humans become when you threaten our children. Consider this your first lesson. This is what we call the Baba Yaga, the monster you create when you think targeting the innocent makes you strong. The crushing Talon went dark, all systems failing simultaneously. In the silence, Thekvar heard something that would haunt his remaining hours, the sound of human children singing. Somehow, the virus had found recordings from New Haven Orphanage and was playing them through every speaker on his ship. Sarah's young voice echoed through the corridors, teaching other children the words to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Similar encounters began occurring throughout Vorthan space. Human vessels appeared without warning, displaying technology that violated everything both species understood about physics and engineering. They struck with precision and purpose, targeting only Vorthan military assets while leaving civilian populations unharmed. The Vorthan High Command struggled to comprehend what they faced. Intelligence reports spoke of human ships that could phase through solid matter, weapons that turned enemy systems against themselves, and defensive technologies that seemed to adapt in real time to any threat. War leader Essie Kathara reviewed the accumulating reports in her command center on the Vorthan homeworld. 47 military vessels have been neutralized in the past week, all by human forces using impossible technology. How many ships did the humans deploy to achieve these victories? She demanded. Intelligence Coordinator Vekaris checked his data carefully. According to all available evidence, War Leader, the humans appear to be using a single vessel. That is impossible. No single ship could coordinate attacks across 17 star systems simultaneously. The evidence suggests otherwise. Each engagement featured a ship called the Little Wooden Spaceship, commanded by a human named Sarah Chun. Sensor readings indicate identical technological signatures across all encounters. Essie Kathara studied the tactical displays, trying to understand how one ship could appear in multiple locations simultaneously. Her military training suggested several possibilities: advanced propulsion, quantum entanglement, or multiple identical vessels, but the evidence supported none of these theories. What do our science specialists say about human technological capabilities? They are confused, War Leader. The technology demonstrated in these attacks appears to be based on principles unknown to our physics. Some theorists suggest the humans have discovered how to manipulate reality itself. The implications chilled Essie Kathara to her core. The Vorthan Empire had expanded across the galaxy through superior technology and ruthless efficiency. They had encountered dozens of species, defeating each through careful analysis of their strengths and weaknesses. Humanity had seemed no different, a young species with primitive technology and predictable tactics. The decision to attack the orphanage had been calculated to demonstrate Vorthan strength while targeting human emotional vulnerabilities. Instead, they had apparently triggered something unprecedented. "Bring me the transmission logs from the orphanage attack," Esikathra commanded. She reviewed the footage showing New Haven's destruction, studying human evacuation procedures and emotional responses. The children's faces showed fear and confusion, but also something else that she had initially dismissed: determination. A human child named Sarah had asked someone called Uncle Marcus to teach her to fight bad people. Another child, James, had modified emergency equipment with sophisticated engineering knowledge. These children had processed the attack not as victims, but as survivors planning future action. Intelligence Coordinator: "What is the current age of the human calling herself Captain Sarah Chun?" Vekris consulted his files. Based on colony records, she would be approximately 26 years old. Esikathra felt understanding dawn like a cold sunrise. 26 years old. If she had been 8 when the orphanage was attacked, that meant 18 years had passed since New Haven's destruction. 18 years for human survivors to grow up. 18 years to develop new technologies. 18 years to plan revenge. The humans hadn't just responded to the attack with military force. They had fundamentally transformed their entire technological base, developing capabilities that challenged reality itself, all to ensure that no one would ever again target their children with impunity. War Leader Vekris reported urgently. "We're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. It's broadcasting on all frequencies." Captain Sarah Chen's image appeared on the main display. She wore the crisp uniform of the Terran Republic Navy, but her eyes carried something that transcended military bearing. They held the absolute certainty of someone who had witnessed unforgivable evil and dedicated their life to preventing its repetition. "Vorthan forces," Captain Chen began. "My name is Sarah Chun. 18 years ago, your empire murdered 53 children at New Haven Orphanage. You killed them because you thought targeting children would make humans afraid." The image shifted to show the little wooden spaceship in its current configuration, no longer disguised as a simple freighter, but revealed as something that seemed to bend space and light around itself. "You were wrong about what would make us afraid. You were also wrong about what would make us strong. This ship carries the names of every child who died at New Haven. Their memory powers every system, guides every weapon, protects every human settlement from those who would harm the innocent." Esikathra watched in growing horror as the technical readouts showed the human vessel's true capabilities. It wasn't bound by conventional physics because its creators had transcended conventional understanding. They had learned to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself, all in service of a single, implacable goal. "The Baba Yaga isn't just a ship," Captain Chen continued. "It's a promise. A guarantee that anyone who targets human children will face consequences that transcend their ability to understand or resist. Your empire has 18 hours to withdraw all forces from human space and submit to judgment for your crimes. What happens if we refuse?" Esikathra transmitted. Captain Chen smiled with absolutely no warmth whatsoever. "Then you'll discover what happens when humans stop playing by the rules that civilized people follow. You'll learn why monsters tell stories about the Baba Yaga to frighten their children into good behavior." The transmission ended, leaving the Vorthan command center in stunned silence. Esikathra realized that her empire faced an opponent unlike anything they had ever encountered. Not just technologically superior, but driven by a motivation that transcended normal military objectives. The humans hadn't just built better weapons. They had transformed themselves into something that viewed the protection of innocence as a fundamental law of reality. And They were 18 hours away from demonstrating exactly what that transformation meant. Marcus Chun stood in the observation deck of Terran Republic Naval Station Omega 7, watching humanity's greatest fleet assemble in the darkness of space. At 80 years old, he moved carefully but with purpose, his weathered hand steady on his walking cane. The same cane concealed a molecular disruptor powerful enough to level a city block, a gift from James Morrison, former orphan turned humanity's lead weapons engineer. 18 years had passed since the Vorthans destroyed New Haven Orphanage. 18 years for 53 children to grow into adults who understood that sometimes the universe required terrible lessons to maintain balance. Uncle Marcus, a familiar voice called from behind him. He turned to see Captain Sarah Chun approaching, her admiral's stripes gleaming in the station's artificial light. The 8-year-old who had once clutched a wooden toy spaceship now commanded the most advanced warship in human history. Her face carried the same determined expression he remembered from that terrible day, but refined by years of training and tempered by absolute purpose. Captain Chun, Marcus replied formally, then softened his tone. Sarah, are you ready? She nodded, studying the massive fleet through the observation windows. The Vorthan High Command refused our ultimatum 6 hours ago. They've mobilized everything, 12,000 ships, their entire military force. They think overwhelming numbers will compensate for technological disadvantage. Marcus watched a sleek vessel pass by the station, its hull seeming to bend light around itself. The TRS little wooden spaceship had evolved far beyond its original design. What had begun as Sarah's childhood nickname for her toy had become humanity's most feared weapon. How many ships are we deploying? Marcus asked. 1, Sarah replied quietly. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Despite knowing Sarah's capabilities, the arithmetic seemed impossible. 1 ship against 12,000? Uncle Marcus, do you remember what you taught me about the difference between fighting and war? He nodded, recalling countless evening conversations during Sarah's teenage years. Fighting is about defeating your opponent. War is about ensuring the problem never happens again. The Vorthans still think this is fighting, Sarah explained. They're preparing to engage our fleet in conventional battle. They don't understand that we're not trying to defeat them. Through the observation deck's enhanced displays, Marcus could see other veterans of New Haven arriving for what they called the Reckoning. James Morrison materialized beside a maintenance panel, his body flickering between solid and energy states. The shy 14-year-old had become humanity's first successful consciousness transfer, existing simultaneously in multiple physical forms while his mind operated the most complex engineering systems ever conceived. Marcus, James said, his voice carrying harmonics that shouldn't exist in human speech. The adaptive systems are ready. Every weapon, every defensive measure, every tactical algorithm has been tested against Vorthan methodology. Emma Rodriguez approached from the medical bay, her breathing apparatus replaced years ago by lungs that functioned in any atmosphere. The little girl who had struggled to breathe during the evacuation now commanded humanity's biological warfare division, developing treatments that could heal any injury or illness while simultaneously creating pathogens that targeted specific enemy physiologies. The Vorthan genome is fully mapped, Emma reported. If we choose the biological solution, their entire species could be neutralized within 72 hours. Marcus studied the 3 adults who had once been frightened children in his care. They spoke of capabilities that transcended normal science, discussing the potential extinction of entire species with clinical detachment. The transformation was simultaneously magnificent and terrifying. Sarah, Marcus asked carefully, what exactly happened to you during these 18 years? She smiled, and for a moment he glimpsed the child she had been. We grew up, Uncle Marcus. We learned that the universe contains beings willing to murder children for strategic advantage. So we became the thing that hunts those beings. The station's communications system activated with Admiral Ross's voice. All personnel, the Vorthan fleet has entered the Kepler system. Engagement will commence in 30 minutes. Through the observation windows, Marcus watched the TRS little wooden spaceship begin its transformation sequence. The vessel unfolded like origami made from crystallized starlight, revealing weapon systems that operated according to principles humanity had discovered only by abandoning conventional physics entirely. "How is any of this possible?" Marcus whispered. James answered, his voice coming from multiple directions simultaneously. "We stopped accepting limitations, Marcus. When someone threatens children, normal rules become optional. We learned to manipulate quantum foam, to treat space-time as a programmable medium, to make consciousness itself into a weapon." Emma nodded, her eyes reflecting depths that shouldn't exist in human vision. "We studied every species in the galaxy, learning how they protect their young. Then, we improved on their methods. Extensively." Sarah placed a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Don't worry, Uncle Marcus. We're still the children you raised. We still believe in protecting the innocent and helping those who can't help themselves. We've just become much more effective at it." The little wooden spaceship completed its transformation, becoming something that hurt to look at directly. It existed in too many dimensions simultaneously, its hull composed of materials that shouldn't exist according to any known physics. "Vorthen fleet detected," the ship's communications system announced in Sarah's voice. 12,467 vessels. Full military configuration. They're broadcasting surrender demands. Marcus watched the tactical display, showing Vorthen ships spreading throughout the system like a metallic plague. Their formation was perfect, their weapons charged, their tactics proven across dozens of conquered worlds. "TRS little wooden spaceship to Vorthen fleet," Sarah's voice echoed through space. "This is Captain Sarah Chun, speaking for the children of New Haven Orphanage. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from human space or face the consequences of your actions 18 years ago." The Vorthen response came immediately, translated into human language by their communication systems. "Human vessel, you are outnumbered 12,000 to 1. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Sarah's laughter echoed through every speaker on the station. "War leader Esikithara, you still don't understand what you're facing. This isn't about numbers. This is about justice." The little wooden spaceship moved. It didn't accelerate or engage propulsion systems. It simply chose to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, appearing throughout the Vorthen fleet faster than light could travel between positions. Marcus watched the tactical display as Sarah's ship engaged 12,000 enemies at once, each encounter lasting exactly the same duration. 3 seconds. In the first second, the little wooden spaceship analyzed each Vorthen vessel's defensive capabilities, crew composition, and tactical role. In the second, it deployed countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize that particular ship's strengths. In the third second, it gave each Vorthen crew the opportunity to surrender. None of them took it. What happened next transcended conventional warfare. The human ship didn't destroy the Vorthen vessels. Destruction would have been too simple, too quick. Instead, it began what Sarah called educational intervention. Each Vorthen ship found its computer systems replaced by something that understood their technology better than they did. Their weapons turned inward, carefully removing non-essential components while leaving life support intact. Their communication arrays began broadcasting something that chilled every Vorthen to their core. Children's voices. The songs, stories, and laughter from New Haven Orphanage echoed through every Vorthen vessel. Not as a weapon, but as a reminder of what they had destroyed. Sarah's voice teaching younger children mathematics. Emma's breathing exercises. James explaining simple engineering principles to fascinated listeners. "Do you hear them, War Leader Esikithara?" Sarah's voice asked through every speaker in the Vorthen fleet. "These are the voices you silenced. Children who would have grown up to explore the universe, to build wonderful things, to protect others from harm." Marcus watched through the station's sensors as Vorthen crew members began to understand what they faced. This wasn't military defeat, it was judgment by the dead. "Instead, you taught them that the universe contains beings willing to murder children for advantage," Sarah continued. So they grew up to become something that hunts those beings, something that ensures children can play with wooden toys without fearing death from space. The Vorthen fleet hung motionless, their ships converted into monuments to their own cruelty. Every crew member remained alive and unharmed, but surrounded by the voices of children whose futures they had destroyed. War leader Essie Kithara's voice carried desperation when she finally responded. "What do you want from us?" "Justice," Sarah replied simply. "Your empire will withdraw from all inhabited systems. Your military will disband. Your leaders will face trial for their crimes. And every year on the anniversary of New Haven's destruction, every Vorthen will listen to these children's voices and remember what happens to those who threaten the innocent. And if we refuse?" Marcus felt the temperature in the observation deck drop as Sarah's response echoed through space. "Then you'll discover why monsters tell stories about the Baba Yaga to frighten their children into good behavior." The little wooden spaceship began to change again, its form shifting into something that existed in realms beyond normal space-time. Marcus caught glimpses of structures that folded through dimensions he couldn't name, weapons that targeted concepts rather than matter, defenses that made reality itself into an ally. "This is what humanity becomes when you teach our children that the universe is cruel," Sarah said. "We become the thing that makes the universe afraid of cruelty." Through the observation windows, Marcus watched the Vorthen fleet begin to withdraw, not in military formation, but in desperate flight from something that challenged their understanding of possible and impossible. James materialized beside Marcus again, his multiple forms converging into human shape. "They'll surrender within the hour. Their leaders are already broadcasting capitulation orders." Emma nodded, monitoring biological data from across the Vorthen fleet. "They're experiencing system-wide psychological trauma, the realization that they've awakened something they can't defeat or understand." Marcus turned to Sarah as she returned to the observation deck. "What happens now?" "Now we make sure this never happens again," she replied. "We establish protocols for protecting children throughout the galaxy. We teach other species what we learned about the difference between strength and cruelty. And if someone else threatens children in the future?" Sarah smiled, and Marcus saw the 8-year-old who had asked him to teach her to fight bad people. "Then they'll discover that the Baba Yaga isn't just one ship or one person. It's what humanity becomes when someone thinks targeting children makes them strong." Through the observation windows, Marcus watched the little wooden spaceship patrol the empty space where the Vorthen fleet had been. The vessel seemed to sing as it moved, broadcasting the voices of children who had learned that the universe could be cruel, but who had grown up to ensure it would also be just. The war was over. The lesson had been taught, and somewhere in the galaxy, children could play with wooden spaceships without fear, protected by adults who remembered what it meant to be afraid, and who had dedicated their lives to ensuring no child would ever feel that fear again. Marcus smiled, listening to Sarah's voice echo through space as she taught other young humans about the importance of protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. The children of New Haven had grown up to become humanity's greatest teachers, ensuring their lesson would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. The Baba Yaga was real, and it watched over children with the absolute dedication of those who had once been children themselves.